is, in my opinion, one of the most important event on a platform. So IFAT has become a very important springboard for bringing about a change. Because unless you bring all these different stakeholders together, you'll never get a change. And I therefore welcome all of you and hope each one of you become a change agent to really bring about the kind of change that is necessary. It is not surprising that such an event should be sponsored, anchored, supported, patronized by Germany. I just came from Germany only a few days ago. I was leading a parliamentary delegation because I can't keep going to Germany. I am also a student of German University, Freie University Berlin, where I am doing my PhD in climate change. So that is going on for a long time because being in the government, I think we believe that if it delayed is better than doing in time. So I know exactly the contribution of Germany to this cause, not just by giving advice to others, but actually practicing on their own. As you always say, charity begins at home. So Germany has actually shown the way to the rest of the world as to how it can be done in a very successful manner, wherein everybody benefits. When we started talking about environmental issues in a significant way, when the Rio first conference was held, that time the worry was, all these are very good ideas, good to talk and discuss, but how to implement? Because that time even technology was not known, and the beauty of it is that when we decided to do it, technology got developed. It's always the case. If we send strong signal to the market that this is what needs to be done, and public policy supports that kind of action and outcomes, technology gets developed. So now we have a technology. The second concern at that time was, good idea, but why would corporate do it? Because it will hurt their bottom line. If you use environment technologies, environment ideas, it is good that you can get some certificate somewhere in the conference, but your shareholders will be very unhappy because they will lose money. Now it is proved beyond point that it helps your bottom line in a more significant way than what one can do. So, over a period of time, we have traveled a long distance in which now we can convincingly say that working on these ideas help your own company. It helps society. It enhances quality of life. And therefore, this is something like a win-win situation that we are immersed today. So IFAT is organizing this conference over a period of time, and I'm sure he would be very happily saying today that now we can say that we are offering a solution which is good for everybody. Water is one of the very key components of human and biological life. Not just human, biological life. And today, the climate change, which is a reality, the biggest sufferer of climate change is going to be water. Maybe water in both ways. Too much of water will also cause suffering, and no water will also cause suffering. So today we are seeing that when there are floods, people suffer. When there is drought, obviously they suffer. And there was an interesting question, what is worse between the two? Whether drought is worse or a flood is worse? Because normal thinking is, you can just off the cuff answer would be flood is better because at least you get too much water. But now we are seeing with empirical evidence that too much of water causes more damage as well. Particular floods wash away entire infrastructure. It actually makes sometimes Even the arable lands, completely non-arable. So agriculture production can get affected. Houses get completely washed out. Roads, everything happens. Roads get washed out. So actually, climate change is going to put extra sense of urgency into dealing with water issues. So I'm very happy that IFAT is dealing with water. And a country like India is not like country in Canada, where Canada is only less than 3% of India's population and probably 7-8 times more water availability than India. We have got only 4% of the global freshwater resources in India and almost 17% of the population to enjoy. And therefore, water is going to be a very key component of the future challenges, and I am very happy that IFAT is dealing with it. And all of you would find solution to this issue. In fact, if you just look at it, 4% looks too small compared to the size of population. But if you really can use it optimally, this is not even small quantity of water. As our friend is doing, he can see the leakage, he goes and runs there. So we waste a lot of water. In fact, bulk of the water, more than 85%, is used for agriculture. And therefore, making optimum use of water is going to be a big issue. And to do that, technologies can play a key role. Public policy is actually important. And at a time when a Prime Minister has created a new ministry called Jal Shakti, dealing with all aspects of water. In fact, I remember when I was a minister looking at water resources in Atal Bihari Vajpayee's cabinet, we were always thinking, why not create one integrated ministry? 13 departments of various central government alone were dealing with water. So I'm very happy that very significant step has been taken by Prime Minister Modi to create an integrated ministry called Jal Shakti for water resources. This is a good beginning. Now, all of you must come forward with ideas, technologies, and actually make it happen on the ground. Other important aspect that we are discussing today is dealing with municipal solid waste. I remember in 1998 I was a Minister for Environment. I had made the law dealing with all aspects of municipal solid waste, medical waste, chemical waste, many of these things. But municipal solid waste, we had a very comprehensive law which is already in place. It deals with collection, segregation, disposal, all aspects of it. But as it always happens, making law is the beginning of process. But law itself does not bring change. Implementation of law brings change. But how do you implement law? You need ecosystem wherein everything will fall in place, and you also need technology. You must commercialize it in a manner that people will find it as a good business opportunity. So IFAT is another good idea wherein you bring all of them together and try to work on it. In fact, the municipal solid waste is a great opportunity for business. Because just imagine, I was giving an example of 1.3 billion people, that's almost 17% of global population. 17% of global population is a problem for water. It's a problem for land because so many people will be using a very scarce resource of land. But it also will generate so much of waste that we can convert that waste into something interesting. My Honorable our Consul General would be thinking that we are this kind of population, we could have created more wealth out of this waste. So we can create a huge waste. We can create a huge wealth out of this waste if you can work on it properly. This is not a technology we should just incinerate it. Incineration is one part of the technology, but we can actually recycle it in a different way and can make it happen. The third, that's what you're you are working on, is besides municipal solid waste, is also sewerage, which also has a lot of water. Just imagine, and Singapore has shown the way. In Singapore, probably has hardly any water because it's only a city state. So they used to import water from Malaysia and then of course re-export it after processing it. But then they realize that their own water security purpose, they must have enough water on their own. So one of the things that they're doing is, besides capturing all the rainwater and harvesting it properly, is actually recycling the sewage water. And this is portable. If I can remember, when there is a Singapore Water Week, and because I dealt with water also, I used to be also the Global Water Partnership, I used to be chair of that. We used to always deal with, and I used to go there. In one of the programs, the Prime Minister of Singapore actually showed that this is how the sewerage water, this is how it's getting processed, and the water that was coming out of it, in presence of everybody, he drank it. So to that extent, it becomes pure. So just imagine, people, when they use water for bathing, they use it for other purposes, for washing, all of that goes into sewer. It can be recycled properly. If you don't do it, it probably damages, and you just allow it to go to the sea. Its adverse impact on marine life. In fact, one of the big problems today in the world is that the oceans, which are the last resort, like the central bank of any country, the last resort for economy. Oceans are the last resort for saving the planet. And if oceans give up the hand, no one can save us. And marine life, the aquatic life, which has more biodiversity than the terrestrial biodiversity, is getting damaged because of this. So you just imagine, if you can do this, it can have another very important item. Other aspect of IFAT is this. So I think, while we need cycling, which your neighbors in Netherlands do, they always do cycling. But we also need recycling. Cycling is good for body, recycling is good for society. So I think we should use the recycling in all its form. Again, a fantastic business opportunity. In any case, what is the choice? Whatever you do today, including the mic that I'm using, including the chair that you're sitting on, including my friends from camera, they're doing it, everything comes from some natural source. A material which is the beginning of a process of industrialization. Material is a process of enjoying human life, because you process that material, create something out of it, and then use it. Those materials are limited. It's not going to happen that we are going to multiply the availability of material just because the human population is increasing. So recycling is the only choice. And as I always say, you should not create a product which is born in cradle and then it should die in some cemetery. You should create from cradle to cradle. How can it be recycled all the time, and it can therefore reborn again? In India, we believe that we get reborn.